back, everybody. Welcome to the next Old Style Angling podcast. This week, my co-host Brandon is on the horn with me, and we'll be checking in with him in a bit and talk some muskie fishing. This week, I've kind of been all over the place, enjoying the little cool-off that we've had throughout the state in the last couple days. But first, I wanted to just start off by talking about muskies this time of year throughout the entire state. I went out once this week. I was just wading on a river up in central Wisconsin for a couple hours in the evening, and I only managed one follow on a swimming dog. This was before the rain that we had this week. This was on Monday, so the water level was still pretty low, and I don't think there was a whole ton of fish activity. Just from seeing some posts and stuff, it looked like the fish had started to snap a little bit towards the end of the week. But anyway, let's chat with somebody who has had a little bit more success this year in the muskie realm. So Brandon, let's start off by talking about where you're locating muskies on rivers this time of year and what kind of conditions you're looking for.
Sure. So I live up in Stevens Point, so I fish a lot of the Wisconsin River. Usually this time of year, you're finding them right on the shoreline, usually undercut banks. I usually fish a lot of the dams around the area, and let me tell you, this year it's been tough. You know, those fish usually come up to the dam, gates are open, and this year, with the very little amount of rain we've gotten, hardly any gates around here are ever open. You know, there's spots on the river that I can almost walk across without getting wet. And I mean, in previous years, those are some of the spots I've caught fish. So it's definitely made things a challenge. I had a feeling it was going to be, you know, kind of a tough year right in May. You know, it was pretty hot for the spring. Opening weekend was a little slower than usual. And, you know, had high expectations for this year, but not looking good. You know, last year, by this time, I was probably at, 25 fish, 30 fish, something like that, and on a really hot topwater bite. But this year, you know, most of the ran into have come on, rubber, glide baits, suics, throwing the hellhound quite a bit. You know, it's probably one of my top producers. Whenever I'm not moving fish on anything else, usually letting that glide bait sink a little bit. Usually that'll get the job done. But I know, you know, some of the guys on the main river, you know, fishing a little deeper, they're having some luck. You know, smaller bucktails and smaller topwaters seem to be doing better. I've heard a lot of hype about those Marvin bucktails, but personally from shore, I've had very, very limited topwater action, which is very, very different and kind of frustrating because, you know, for anyone unfamiliar, the river around Stevens Point, it's a really shallow stretch, so it can be tough to fish a lot of places with anything but topwater. With the muskie bite being tough, I decided this year it's going to change things up, do a little more multi-species angling.
Yeah, so we've both kind of been out doing some bass fishing this week, and personally around here, I found it to be a little slower than usual. There's actually been a couple big tournaments this week in lacrosse here, bass tournaments. A Major League Fishing tournament was yesterday, and I was just kind of looking over the results, and it looked like almost half the field or so ended up with no fish. And I was out on the river yesterday, not bass fishing, but just doing some pan fishing, and I saw a lot of the tournament anglers looking like they were focusing mainly around weed edges and weeds with using topwater frogs, which is not uncommon for this for the Mississippi River. It's, I mean, kind of the staple for a lot of bass guys. But the fish that I've been catching this week have been actually away from the weeds, more in bigger bays. I've been kind of focusing on schools of bait fish that have been really piling up this year in certain areas, and doing pretty good on top water baits like buzz baits and stuff like the whopper ploppers, and not so much on the frogs. So yeah, getting them on top water, but just a little bit different approach to it, which is interesting because I didn't see many guys in the tournament doing that. So it'd be interesting to see what the guys that were catching fish were using and what they were catching them on. But I wasn't able to find any information on that. And Brandon, I know you were getting your fish on top water as well up north. I think they were all smallmouth, right?
Yeah, they were.
Yeah, all smallmouth. What were you using and what were you targeting?
It's kind of interesting you were talking about the top water because going into the day yesterday, I started off the morning throwing some Ned rigs around, smaller crankbaits, and just wasn't getting the action I was looking for. So switched over to a Berkeley Chapo, and they were loving it. Just a couple rips, paws, and doing that was putting a lot of fish in the boat. If we were getting on top water, the size caliber was a lot better than what we were getting on the nets. The nets were getting some bites, but, most of them were, at 8 to 12 inch range, little dinks. But top water it was pretty hot yesterday. We were getting a lot of fish in that 15 to 17 inch range, which, no monsters, but makes for a fun day.
Yeah, those are still good fish, and they definitely, those 17-inch smallmouth, they put up a fight. So that's definitely always a good time. Something else I was wanting to bring up, this year, I know the muskie fishing has definitely been negatively affected by the low water and whatnot on the rivers, but I also think increase in fishing pressure has definitely been a big factor in the a lot of the spots that I fish, at least. There's one spot that's closer to where I live that I used to hit quite a bit, and in the past years I was not finding too many people there when I'd be fishing, especially on the week. But last year I couldn't go there without seeing 5 other people fishing. Not always musky fishing, but just any kind of pressure at all definitely affects muskies, especially on smaller water. And I actually found some interesting information about the increase in angling over the past year, due to the everything being shut down due to COVID. People, I think, definitely started wanting to reconnect with the outdoors, and there's positives and negatives to all of that. And especially in a place like Wisconsin, where we are blessed with just a huge amount of resources to enjoy the outdoors. And so the more people that are out there, it's not going to really take a huge toll on our areas. But fishing pressure wise, it's definitely made it more of a challenge to catch fish. Some information I found here from the Associated Press actually said that there's a 13.2% increase in fishing license sales over the last year in comparison to the previous year, and which was the highest they had been in over 5 years. So that's a pretty good increase, especially considering it's just a change over 1 year, not a gradual shift. And one of the more interesting things I found, which I had noticed out on Pool 8, especially on the Mississippi and Pete and Well over the winter, just seeing more people fishing and more boats. There were more than 310,000 new power boats sold in 2020, and that's increase of 12% over the last year, which is a level that the boating industry has not seen since before the Great Recession in the late 2000s. And yeah, that information is coming from the National Marine Manufacturers Association. So that's some pretty interesting stuff going on that has increased the fishing pressure, definitely increased the fishing pressure around populated areas like where I live. And that has definitely, I think, hampered some of the fishing and made it more of a challenge to find fish and find non-pressured fish, especially. I don't know, Brandon, have you been noticing that around Tomahawk area up north?
Yeah, there's a lot of spots north where usually after the first couple of weeks of muskie season, you don't really see anybody out there. A lot of the guys like to focus more on the lakes, which, it's understandable. There's plenty of lakes to choose from up there. So the river doesn't really seem to get too much pressure, but the last few times I've gone up there, I've definitely ran into some people. Same thing around, the area. There's a couple spots that I fish where in the last couple of years I've seen maybe 3 people down there total. And now this year, I go down there and it seems like 1 out of every 5 times I go down there, there's, at least 1 or 2 people there.
That's interesting. And the other thing that goes along with that, that I was just thinking about is, new anglers, people that haven't fished for a while or have little experience. It's going to be important to make sure those people know, not only how to catch fish, but especially in a year like this where we're having a lot of warm temperatures and looks like next week we're going to be up in the 90s again for a prolonged period, at least around here. It's going to be important to make sure those people know, fish handling techniques and when not to fish. If the weather's getting warm like this, it's going to affect the fish, and not only with muskies, but also with trout. I was out driving around yesterday, out in the driftlets towards Vernon County, that area, and every single bridge that I stopped at, you could tell there was somebody that had either there was a car there, or you could tell by just footprints and whatnot that there had been people there. So those fish are getting pressured pretty heavily too in certain areas, which trout and muskies are definitely more fragile fish in comparison to some of the other warm water species. So it's going to be important to make sure those people, if you see them at a boat ramp, just give them a friendly reminder, or just, try not to be a jerk about it. I know some people can kind of get a little aggressive with it, but there's a lot of new people out here fishing, and so it's going to be important for us avid anglers to educate people the right way and make sure people are doing the right thing when they're out on the water, and for the best interest of not only the other anglers, but more importantly of the fish population here in Wisconsin. So I think Brandon wanted to add some information to this as well.
Yeah, so right now we're seeing water temps around 78 on the river, and just for anyone that's kind of new to the muskie game, or doesn't really know much about it, the standard cutoff usually is around 80 degrees. That's when a lot of the muskie guys just quit fishing for them. It can be really stressful on the fish, and once those water temps hit that 80-degree mark, the survival rate drops quite a bit. So it's in the best interest of the fish to stop targeting them once you hit that level. With the weather we got coming, we're in that mid 80-degree range, but we're definitely on trend to hit that 80-degree water mark. Eye out, respect the resource.
Yes, yeah, definitely agree with that. Just making sure that you're being vigilant with water temperatures and checking that before you go out, and just keeping in mind the air temps, and one of the big things is looking at the cool downs at night. If it gets up to 85 degrees one day, in a week, that's not going to affect the water temperature that much. But if, you get these prolonged periods of warm weather with, maybe just like a 10-degree drop at night, that's definitely going to affect the fishing and the not only the fishing, but definitely going to affect the water temperature. And yeah, just making sure that everybody is fishing, with the fish health in mind and the fish's safety in mind. It's just a really important thing this year with the warm water temperatures and the prolonged heat periods that we're having this summer. In Wisconsin, the good thing, if you're not able to go muskie fishing or if it's too warm to go walk a trout stream, we have lots of other fish that we can target here in Wisconsin. Brandon was actually just talking to me a little earlier about he's been catching some walleye out in the river and some good eater-sized walleye. And something that kind of was interesting to me is he's getting them on rubber. Here on the Mississippi, I've been catching a couple. They've kind of been moving back and forth between the wing dams and the sloughs the last 2 to 3 weeks. And out here it's tough for me to catch them on anything that's not live bait. I get some on crankbaits, trolling crankbaits, but usually a night crawler or willow cats are my go-tos. But yeah, Brandon's been catching them on rubber. So why don't you just kind of talk about what you've been finding them on, Brandon?
Sure. So I've been having my best luck on pulsars. It's one of my go-to baits. Paddle tails in general, fantastic walleye bait. And the last couple weeks I've been having quite a bit of luck, kind of on the channel edges or right below any like cooler water discharge. And one thing I want to add is, even if I'm not catching walleyes, I like to be throwing some of those paddle tails around, just because on the river you never know what to expect. I've caught everything from catfish, smallmouth, muskies, northern, walleyes. You name it. But anything will eat them, and you never know. Sometimes you might luck into, that trophy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Those paddle tails are definitely one of my favorite baits, especially over the last couple of years. And like you said, you never know. Any predatory fish likes a paddle tail. I'm not sure how long we're going to be seeing these warm temperatures, but if it's too hot to get out and walk a trout stream or too hot to get out and target muskies, go out and try and catch some bass and, focus on that top water bait. It's a real good time catching fish watching fish blow up on a top water bait. And as many people can attest to, you really can't beat watching a topwater blow up from a big largemouth or a smallmouth or whatever you're going after. Maybe if you're fishing on the Mississippi, you're getting some topwater blow ups from some dogfish. But we're gonna wrap it up here. So I want to thank Brandon for co-hosting this with me. Like I said before, if there's something you want to hear us talking about. We're kind of all over the place, fish-wise and location. So I know that we definitely can have some kind of input on whatever you want to talk about, or we can find somebody that knows about it. So like I said before, I want to hear from you guys, and I've been really, really blessed with the support that we've gotten so far from people with doing this podcast. And we hope to see you next week. And thank you for listening. Tight lines, everybody.